Welcome to another Opportunity Attack from the Grognards. I'm Dean Gygax.
I'm Eric Hawley, soon to be joined by Greg Ziegler.
And in this Opportunity Attack, it is none other than Luke Gygax that has provoked our action. Luke is the son of D&D co-creator Gary Gygax. He is also the co-founder and organizer of the awesomely fun GaryCon, which is held in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, coming up March 7th through the 10th. And so we rolled really well on our persuasion check, and so now we have Luke on the phone to talk with us about all things related to GaryCon, Growing Up Gygax, D&D, and gaming in general. Welcome, Luke, and thank you very much for joining us on the Grognards.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me. It's my pleasure.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. We're quite excited about this, and so we've got some questions we'd like to ask you.
Well, first, I just want to share that GaryCon has surpassed Gen Con as my favorite gaming convention of the year. So great job with GaryCon, Luke.
Thank you. That's high praise.
Yeah, it's tons of fun.
I will have to say that I would agree with Eric on that. This is the only con that I have ever searched for GMs to play with as opposed to specific games.
Yeah. It's there's the GM quality at GaryCon is very high, so that's a testament.
Yeah, that's what it's funny, and if I can just jump in there, that's what I tell a lot of people who come to GaryCon for the first time, especially. They'll be a little surprised because we have, as opposed the way I did it, just out of simplicity, really. The first GaryCon, I didn't have any planned events whatsoever. You just showed up and played games. And, I wasn't thinking about it, but I'm sure a lot of the guys who came there were probably designers in their own right because they happen to be friends of my dad.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it was Jim Ward or Frank or whoever it was, you would just come and play. That was what it was about. And then when it grew and I had to be a little bit more organized, we decided, well, we're doing this registration. We can't just let the first person who sign up for all the games with, the guys who were the old guard that time, what I still call them today, Frank, Jim, Tim, Mike, and Tom Wam, Mike Card, Tom Wam.
Mm-hmm.
So we did a little points system, or gold piece system and silver piece system, and over the years that morphed into featured events and regular events. And so some guys will be like, oh, geez, I can, all the, upper tier badges are gone. I can just only get a silver badge. I'm like, hey, man, a silver badge, that's all the gaming you want. That's as many games as you can fit in.
Absolutely.
You can walk onto. And just the featured events are great. But I mean, there's guys who come for years and they tell me, you know what, I forgot to register one year. The best time I had was just showing up and walking up to games. And I met some amazing GMs. I just had a blast. And it was even better than the year that I, focused and really, got into all these exact games that I thought I wanted.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's better just to show up and see who's there, because GaryCon is the beneficiary of a lot of goodwill. A lot of folks make the pilgrimage to Lake Geneva, and this is the convention that people, a lot of vendors or people in the business come to GaryCon not to work, but to play.
Well,
so you'll be sitting at the table with a lot of those guys.
I'll have to say, I got to put a shout out to Nancy Hutchins. She was somebody I did not know, and I played in one of her games last year, and I had so much fun, and we just got along so well that I actually took a picture of her and her badge so that I could seek her out again for this year's GaryCon. I know that's a little creepy, but...
And if I'm not mistaken, I think you guys it initially starts as one featured event per silver badge, but then doesn't it open up after a certain amount of time? Because I seem to remember I got into more than one.
Correct. So something that I think is very important is that if I make a promise to someone, I want to keep it. So if I sell a certain number of badges and I say you're going to get so many featured events, I make sure that there's enough to go around. So I will, I'll say, hey, there's only so many badges, or whatever the case may be. That's important to live up to your word in whatever we're doing, and I know people trust us at GaryCon do that.
Mm-hmm.
So we will limit it to it's one per silver badge, and if we sell 1,800 badges or something, it may only be one per silver badge. But if only 1,200 people pre-register and we have extra, there's no reason to have empty seats at the table. So we just open up another round and say, go ahead, we've added another featured event for everybody. Go ahead and pick a second round.
Okay.
Because there's no reason to have empty seats at the table.
Yes.
Yeah. Can we go back a little bit? So what started your idea to create GaryCon? Let's go back to the beginning of the foundation.
The
origin story of GaryCon. Can you relate a little bit of that information?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one thing I forget. Of course, I know why it's called GaryCon, but many people have asked me, "Oh, is it because it's in Gary, Indiana, or something like that?" And,
God forbid.
I have to say no. It's named after my father, Gary Gygax, and it came out of a very sad event on March 4th of 2008. My father passed away. I remember getting that phone call and how just horrible that feeling is, and anyone who's lost a parent, can understand those feelings. Well, I traveled back to, I live in California, so I traveled back to Wisconsin and, helped prepare, I prepared a eulogy, I was doing all these things. And as we're going through this process, I was just astounded by the number of people who reached out. Obviously, there's news stories about my father passing, and folks were talking about how important he was to them through his work with Dungeons and Dragons. Thousands of people reached out by email, posted on forums, gave me phone calls. I'm in the California Army National Guard, and I was in a recruiting at that time, and so my number was fairly easy to find. And there were folks who were calling me who were senior officers in the California Guard, and just expressing their condolences, saying, "Hey, I don't know you, but your dad meant a lot to me, and I just wanted to take a moment to send my condolences." It's kind of like I lost someone important in my family as well with the passing of your father. Mm-hmm. And so that was with that in mind, and when you're able to share that kind of a loss with a larger group, it's really cathartic. It's helpful. And I really appreciated my family, and I appreciated all the folks who took time to reach out and to share in whatever way how important my father was to them, and give us that sense of comfort during this time. And so I thought, well, after the funeral, there's a lot of people who actually physically drove to Lake Geneva. We should have a little gathering. And I thought, what better place than the American Legion Hall in Lake Geneva, which is a place that I remember very fondly in the late 1970s when I was very young. Small convention. And my brothers and sisters, well, my sisters, primarily my mom, would work the concession stand, and my brother and I and my dad would play games. And that was awesome. So that's kind of what we did. I rented out the American Legion Hall, and we set up a microphone and said, "Hey, tell your favorite stories about my dad. If you'd like to, you can share that. Otherwise, we'll have the D&D cartoon, the Futurama episode that he was in playing. So there's some drink, there's some food that people had brought. Come and have a great time playing games and talking about and remembering my dad." And people had such a good time there, and they just really enjoyed that opportunity and that fellowship. Someone said to me, "Hey, Luke, you should do this again next year. This is a really great way to honor your father."
Of course they did.
I believe, and I believe it was Jolly Blackburn must have been within earshot, because he chimed in and said, "You can call it GaryCon." And I didn't know it at that time, but in the comic book called Knights of the Dinner Table that Jolly did.
Yeah, Gary Jackson.
You're right. There's Gary Jackson from Hard 8 Games, I believe it is, and of course that's his character. And GaryCon is their Gen Con in that world. And so I have the full blessing of Jolly to use GaryCon. I didn't know that it existed prior to that, but so that is how GaryCon happened.
Was that GaryCon 0 or was that GaryCon 1?
In 2008, it would have been what became known as GaryCon 0.
Okay. That
was the gathering after his funeral. And then in 2009, I did the same thing. I rented out the American Legion Hall, and my brothers and sisters helped me. They cooked food and brought it in there. We made a few, Ringer T-shirts, some white T-shirts with green, armbands and neckband, and put a lizard man on there because I thought, well, that's kind of cool. I remember the lizard band logo from way back when. And,
I love the fact that you said that your brothers and sisters were helping cook the food and catering it. I just think that is fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we didn't charge money the first year. I expected that I would spend a few $1,000s every year to throw a party and have people come and remember my dad and And that was it. I had no idea how many people would show up, whether it would be 15 or 50.
How many?
The first year, about 100. I think a friend of mine said, you can't just let people show up. You have to do some kind of sign up online and that sort of thing. So he did, and issued badges and numbered them. I think we had 168 people that came. So,
sounds like a lot of the origins of D&D just recreated at a later time. That small Gen Con and grows from there. So, you brought something up, and that sense of community, I don't think it took the death of your father to make it happen, but I think there's this gamer community out there, and GaryCon embodies that feeling that we all share this common thread. No matter what other differences we have, we can come together and enjoy ourselves. And I truthfully, I think we need more of that in this country right now. But that's what I love about GaryCon. It's just everybody's on the same page. We all love the same things. Yeah,
it's funny that you mentioned that, because I'm a little bit tardy here in writing. I usually write a little introductory page to the GaryCon event guide. It's sort of an old-fashioned thing that we do, but I just like to do it, and I think it adds to the convention. We print a hard copy event guide, color cover, high quality event guide, and that's, I don't think people see that. It's like 80 or 90 pages. But anyway, I write a little intro in the beginning, and I just was reflecting on why is it that GaryCon keeps growing and so many people enjoy it. And besides having like a super amazing skilled guy who's organizing it and very charismatic at that, it really boiled down to that was a joke. It boiled down to community. And it's basically a whole bunch of people just want it to be successful, and they put their heart and soul in there, and they're willing to give and help and make it happen. And so GaryCon is just the recipient. It's the embodiment of the great sense of community, and gamers are good people. I say that a lot, and I mean it, because gamers are good people, and we get together and we have a wonderful time. And I'm really lucky and honored to be privileged enough to help organize GaryCon and carry on the legacy of my father this way. So it really blows me away, and it's just something that over the years, it's changed me. I've grown a lot as a person through doing this. I've learned a lot of stuff, and I'm just very appreciative of being part of that community.
Eric went 2 years ago, and then he said to me, Dean, you've got to go to GaryCon. It's amazing. And so I went last year. Last year was my inaugural year, and I'd have to agree. It was, I'd never been before, didn't know what to expect, but my goodness, it was just so much fun, and I felt so relaxed. At other game conventions, I tend to kind of spin my wheels a little bit in trying to, get my footing and such, but boy, I just walked into GaryCon, and it was great, and you're absolutely right. That whole community sense just kind of took over, and it just made an incredibly wonderful experience for me.
My experience was about the same way, too. Actually, that was my first overnight game convention. And, just nothing else existed in the world other than we were there. We got up, we played games, we drank beer, repeat.
Yeah, my first GaryCon, I went and played Fight in the Sky Society Dawn Patrol. And while we're playing, some older gentleman stops by and says, hey, you guys having fun? And it was Mike Carr just saying, hey, I made this game. Are you having fun doing it?
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, he made that game when he was about 16.
Yeah, it was a while ago. And the other thing, and not to be light, but it's almost a pilgrimage for gamers to go to Lake Geneva. It's this little, vacation-y type kind of town, and it's sort of interesting as opposed to going to Indianapolis to Gen Con. To go to, I wasn't lucky enough to make it to Lake Geneva for Gen Con. I was playing D&D back then, but I lived on the East Coast, and my parents weren't going to foot that bill.
Yeah.
So what are your future plans for GaryCon? I mean, how big can it grow? I am assuming you probably want to keep it in Lake Geneva, right?
Yes, that was a struggle from the earliest days. That some people were like, oh, it's the next Gen Con, let's grow this thing to 10,000 people and move to Milwaukee. And it's hard enough to organize right now at 2,000 people. I sure as heck don't want to try to organize it at 10,000 people and take on all that. Plus, besides the practical aspects and my not wanting to be the organizer of a giant convention, hats off to those folks who do that. like Peter Adkison, by the way, who comes to GaryCon and has come for many years and is a great source of advice. That's a much different animal, and it's not what I want to do. So for me, for the foreseeable future, I plan on staying at the Grand Geneva Resort in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, and holding a convention in March for the simple reason that that is a memorial convention to my father in the place where he lived the majority of his life, where D&D was created, where TSR was started, where the Gen Con, my dad started Gen Con in 1968. He founded that in the Horticultural Hall in Lake Geneva. And I think that's where GaryCon belongs. That is our home.
Here.
We totally agree.
If something changes drastically or whatever, I mean, I suppose there, something could happen, but I don't have any plans for that. I don't foresee that. I'm very happy at a convention of about 2,500 people at the Grand Geneva, and I think that's probably about as big as we can get comfortably. And I think that's important. I want to maintain. I've just been surprised year after year as we grow, because we grew at GaryCon 7, I think, to 900 people, and we were in a different hotel, and we just couldn't fit. It was getting uncomfortable. We couldn't fit any more people in there. And so I took the leap and went to a different hotel, and the largest hotel in Lake Geneva, and it's a 4-diamond resort, so it's significantly nicer. And we grew into that, and now we take the whole hotel. And I thought, we'll be here at the Grand Geneva. We could never get too big for this place. Well, 3 years later, we're maxing it out, and we fill up the entire hotel and the hotels around.
Now,
and I expect we'll be about 2,500 people this year. But as you guys are a testament to, when you walk in, you still have the feeling that you're not in an anesthetic, huge environment where you're one of 10,000 drones that are milling about. It feels like you're with friends, or you're in a community. And that's exactly the vibe I want. That's what I envisioned. It was like when I was a kid and I was 7 or 8 years old. You don't realize it when you're a kid. Of course, my dad happened to be Gary Gygax, and so people knew him in that community. So when I would walk up to a table and say, "Hey guys, can I play?" they said yes. Hopefully they said yes because they were nice, and they would do that anyway. And I think that having kids play at your game is a really wonderful, real wonderful thing, and they really love it and enjoy it. And you're fostering their hobby, and really, it's just a good thing to do. But I want that. I want people to be able to walk up to, even, we're all big kids, right?
Yep.
So as a big kid, I want to be able to walk up to a table and go, "Hey, this is an open seat. Are you guys, just starting? Can I jump in?"
And I
want people to say, "Yeah, sure."
And you do that at GaryCon, if I'm not mistaken. They have open seat flags for tables,
which is a wonderful idea. I wish that was done at all game conventions.
Yeah.
We make so basically we just put pizza stands up there, and we make full table placards, 5x8 table placards. And if a green card is up, that means, hey, we're accepting players, walk on up. If a red card is up, then it means the game is full, or we've already passed the point where we can accept new players. But if you see a green card, come to GaryCon, even if you just show up for a day, come to GaryCon, go to a gaming area, look for somebody with a green placard up, and just simply walk up, wait for, find that you'll probably be able to identify the GM or whatever, and say, "Excuse me, do you have room for someone?" And the chances are, if they have a green placard up, they're going to say, "Yeah, sure, grab a seat."
Right.
And then you play a game. That's it.
With everything that you've said, do you ever see a point where you may have to put a cap on the number of people who are able to come to GaryCon? I would hate to think that would ever be a scenario, but...
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that is probably inevitable. I have resigned myself to that. It may be the case. My choices are to grow it, which means changing venue or adding a satellite venue. Neither one of those is a great answer, but it's possible. I could do it. I believe that's how Gen Con did things, is they occupied multiple sites throughout Lake Geneva, and maybe there was a miniatures gaming area, and there was a role play area, and there was, whatever, different area. That makes it more fragmented. It's harder to keep that sense of community. It's also much harder to provide management and, for all that. So it would just be difficult.
It would be a logistical nightmare.
And you know what? Bigger isn't always better.
No.
I mean, that's just a sad fact.
It isn't. I know I may disappoint some people in that sense, but we'll find what that kind of hard physical cap is. I think we're going to see this year what 2,500 people feels like. And you know what? More people may not come because it's just harder to get a hotel room at a certain point. So maybe that will be a way to actually.
I know the rooms in the Grand Geneva were sold out like the last day
at the convention.
of GaryCon. I hesitated and I lost. So
they sold out.
But I tell people, off-site isn't that far. It's,
no, we're talking about. I mean, you could probably still find a hotel maybe within 10 to 15 minutes. I'm thinking Elkhorn, Delavan area, Williams Bay, not that far away.
I stayed in Kenosha last year, and it was a 25-minute drive, no big deal.
Kenosha. I mean, that's really going far away. But yeah, you could get certainly closer than that. I would imagine.
Well, he had friends, so he was staying for free.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
Dean will do anything for free.
So we have this little thing we do with our interviewees where we ask them 3 questions based on their expertise, and you sort of segued into that because one of the questions has to be with you being a parent. The other one has to do with being a military officer, and a third one has to do with being a Gygax. So I'll start with the parent, and answer these to as thoroughly as you wish. But at what age do you think you should introduce your children to RPGs?
Well, I couldn't wait for my kids to get old enough so I could start gaming with them. My oldest daughter, she's my mini-me. She's 11 now. And I have made her into a little gamer. She loves watching the Voltron cartoon and anime, and she's read all the Harry Potter books and Percy Jackson and The Hobbit and all that sort of stuff. I introduced her to board gaming. I mean, gosh, I would play games with her where we just we get out dolls or action figures or whatever and around the couch and I'd shake some dice and they'd fight or something. Like that. There was a little bit kind of, that was probably
Barbie wargaming. Yeah. I like it.
Wargaming. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you got to do stuff like that. Put a blanket over the couch or some pillows, and you get some terrain, and fly around and blast stuff with laser eyes. Or because kids have great imaginations, they love that.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And I introduced her to like Smith's Revenge and Awful Green Things and Stone Age and stuff like that at about the age of 5 or 6. And I think she was ready to role play probably by 7.
Oh wow!
Or 8. She had the ability to do that. But she's always been a little bit more advanced. They're patient with that. Now my youngest daughter, Sabrina, she's 5. She doesn't have that kind of patience to sit at the table. She gets distracted. Mm-hmm. She does have a good imagination when she's focused there. She'll play. So it's probably a little bit of age variant as well as the individual personality.
Yeah.
But typically, if you want to introduce your kid to role-playing, I would certainly say by 10, they absolutely should be prepared to play in some way or another. It might be, really loose and,
mm-hmm.
whatever, just have fun with it. Don't take your gaming too seriously, which you probably shouldn't anyway.
Yeah. I've actually ran 10-year-olds at conventions, and they're pretty good. I mean, usually they have a parent with them, which is appreciated.
Yes. Yeah, that helps. I don't want to be responsible for a large group of children, and what if one of them wanders off and you're at a convention?
Can't stop the combat, even though a kid wandered off.
My daughter started. My daughter started when she was 9. My son, it took him a while for me to convince him to sit at the table and play D&D, but he was 11, so. I agree. 10
girls are always more ahead of boys.
I think so.
Okay, second question, based on your fact that you're a military officer. If Jeb Stuart had arrived at Gettysburg at the start of the battle rather than late the second day, could the Confederacy have taken the battle? These are not easy questions.
No, it's hard to, armchair general. Or Monday morning quarterback, whatever you're going to call it.
Hey, you're a gamer. You do it all the time.
Yeah.
That's true. I played Gettysburg, and I remember giving a talk in college on public speaking about Gettysburg. I think the Confederate side had a lot of they suffered logistically, and it's going to be tough. Now I'm a logistics officer. I'll tell you, it's tough to win without enough stuff. without bullets, without food, without proper gear. It makes it really hard on your soldiers. Now, the Southern troops did a fantastic job of fighting against the North, who had advantaged numbers and advantaged equipment, and their tactics were superior. So sometimes that can carry the day, and it didn't in this case. Now, I do think that the Confederates could have not easily, but they could have won that battle. They made some terrible mistakes that I think led to the eventual end of the war, but they had to gamble.
Yeah.
They just were not in a position where they could fight the long fight.
Yeah.
That the Union stood, and the people didn't stop the war, didn't protest as much, is pretty amazing to think about. The American people, we haven't changed that much in 150 years, whatever it's been.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a lot of manipulation of the news and the media, which is kind of a different topic, but interesting stuff. I remember my dad talking to me about that, and how he was actually not a huge fan of Abraham Lincoln because he suspended a lot of our constitutional rights, apparently, during the war, declaring martial law in some areas and things like that. So he wasn't so sure that that set a good precedent for future presidents and that sort of thing.
And he might be correct.
Yeah,
Roosevelt did the same thing.
Yeah,
you got to be careful about the American system of government. I think whatever the great experiment, the grand experiment of democracy. I really do love this country, and I think that we have a wonderful form of government, but there's dangers, and it requires an informed electorate.
Yep.
And we have responsibilities. And gosh, it's hard
Yeah.
with kids and jobs and all these other things. And I would argue today a little bit that it's hard to get accurate news accounting. There are a lot of times we get people's opinions or things that sometimes are masked as news. And
don't get your news off of Facebook, listeners. That's what we're saying.
Yeah.
That is not a news site.
Yeah, and people want to be adversarial so much and treat it like it's a football game. Where you have to be for one side or another. I would just like to point out that we're all Americans and that we all have a shared fate.
We're in it together.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that I think we have much more in common with each other than we do different. And that by talking to people and trying to understand their position, maybe we can learn something and come a little bit closer together to getting things done that takes care of the country in the future, as a team, as opposed to always denigrating each other and going for the most base.
So maybe that's what we need to start as a gaming club in Washington, D.C. and get congressman, president, a couple like to see Ruth Bader Ginsburg pushing some minis,
There you go.
They wouldn't be much larger than her, much smaller than her, I guess.
Now, would they be forced to GM, though?
They might, they might have to.
I think Ruth would want to GM.
Yeah. Okay, third and final question. As a Gygax, should there be a separate bastard sword listing in 5th edition, or does it suffice that you can use a longsword two-handed for 1d10 damage? This is very controversial among some grognards.
You know what? I think that 5th edition, I didn't know what to think of it. I didn't know the guys who wrote it or anything like that prior to. But I played 5th edition. I've introduced my girls to it, and I think that it's fine the way it is. I think that what you're looking at in 5th edition is a game that has smoother edges. It's more polished.
Right.
It is a game that a little bit, I don't know if it's going to makes more sense to someone who picks up a book fresh, a new person, a new gamer. Me as hell, I guess I'm an old Grognard myself at this point. I love 1st edition. That's what I grew up playing. All the wonkiness of it to me is like, well, this is how it should be. What do you mean there could be something different? How dare they take away Vantine magic from me? That's, I cry foul. But I've seen new players, and I've seen how much they enjoy it, and I see how they can grasp it a little bit more quickly. So I think they did a fantastic job. Mike and his team are a great group of guys and girls. And I think it's awesome, and that they are having a lot of success in bringing in tons of new gamers and keeping our hobby alive. Yeah. Some people have groused and said, "Oh gosh darn it, Luke! How dare you have Adventurers League at GaryCon. This is an old school Renaissance convention. And I just point out, hey guys, at one point in time, there was these wargaming clubs here. They played historical miniatures wargames. And there were these two, radical guys who wrote this game called Dungeons and Dragons, and it's where they mixed, miniatures and fighting with stuff out of like Conan books.
Yeah.
Can you believe that? I mean, how ridiculous is that? They want, and the purists wanted to kick them out and say, no, you can't do this.
They were heretics.
Exactly.
And,
exactly. And
I read that thread on the forums, and somebody posted, the people who play Adventures League, they're not old school gamers. And I almost responded, but I don't like to just feed the trolls. Yeah. But, I've been gaming since 1978, and I run Adventures League at conventions because I think it's important to spread the hobby. I mean, when people come in and they don't have a group, there's only a couple places you're going to be able to play D&D, and Adventures League is I don't know if I'd want to play it as my only version of D&D, but I think it rises the level of, all gaming benefits from more gamers, and gives them a place to. So I'm glad you have Adventures League at GaryCon. I think it would be a loss if we didn't try to bring new people into the fold and offer that.
Definitely.
And exactly. And once they're there, maybe they came to play an Adventures League game, but they walk around and they stumble into the Legends of Wargaming room, and they start reading about the origins of our game and about my dad and how he came up with Dungeons and Dragons and how it was published in 1974. And then they perhaps bump into somebody who will show them a game like Chainmail or Siege of Bodenberg or even OD&D, and they just happen to play, and they get an appreciation for the roots of the game that they love so much in 5th edition, and they see some of its earlier editions and become familiar with it. So there's no reason that new players can't come to a convention, especially GaryCon, and find out a little bit about the roots of their game if they choose to, if they care to. And there's no reason that, let's say you're the most grognardy of grognards, there's nothing saying you can't go up and take some dice and try out 5th edition and see what it's about for yourself.
So the game,
I think that's great.
The game you play now, what edition do you play? Do you play 1st edition AD&D?
Well, I hardly ever get to play. I'll be honest with you guys. It's a terrible tragedy, but the fact is I am so busy with 3 jobs and a family that I don't get to play nearly as much as I would like to. But the last game I played with my daughters was 5th edition. Okay. And in fact, I played it as crazy as they wanted to make it. I said, what do you guys want to be? And I opened up D&D Beyond. I use that program to help me build the characters quickly. And my 5-year-old is a bugbear ranger.
I like bugbears.
My 11-year-old is a minotaur paladin.
Nice.
And my 8-year-old is an elven warlock.
Okay.
So I mean, it's just, I was like, okay, we're just gonna, this would, my dad would definitely chastise me for doing this, but I said, all right, I'm gonna just embrace it and go hog wild. I just opened up everything, and that's what they wanted to do, and I said, okay.
All right.
And we played, and I give them heck. I said, hey, you guys are playing monsters, so when you go into town or around people, they're going to be scared of you. You're going to have to do some convincing. Mm-hmm. And they've been forced to sleep. They've been forced to sleep in the barn and told like, oh, we don't let monsters in here. Get it. So I use it as just as a chance maybe to teach them. It's an opportunity that you could use to teach your children about, maybe sure their characters, they look like monsters, but what are they like on the inside? You can teach through role playing all sorts of things. But anyway, so I played 5th edition is the last time that I played.
So this is a great segue to kind of talk a little bit about growing up in the Gygax family. When did you first play D&D? I mean, we've got a couple of questions related to probably your childhood and your father and stuff like that. But when was your first time playing D&D with your father?
The first time that I played, I'm pretty sure it's the first time I played. First time I remember, I think I was about 4 years old.
4?
And
wow.
Yes. And because that's what my dad did. So I wanted to hang out and be with him. So
makes sense.
People over at it's a dining room table. Well, it was on 330 Center Street, which, by the way, if you go to GaryCon, you can play D&D at 330 Center Street. So it was at our home there, and I believe the scenario was a precursor to T1, because we were in a village, I believe it was the village of Hamlet, and the adventuring party was there, and they were going to go to, the ruins on the edge of the village there and explore them. And I played a man-at-arms that they hired. And that man-at-arms secretly worked for the druid, and he was a ranger, but he wasn't supposed to reveal that. So my dad had me roll the dice for him for attacks and that sort of thing, and then he told me, hey, you actually work for the druid, and you're actually a little bit tougher. Her name is Otis, and but you're supposed to kind of play dumb and not let them know, but you're keeping your eye on them to see if they're actually a good party or if they're really, an evil group trying to, work and get the Temple of Elemental Evil revived.
Fantastic.
Yeah, there was a lot of like subterfuge between characters and NPCs. I think it came from that wargaming roots where there was competition, and they sort of carried that over. I like that part of early D&D.
No, you don't see that much anymore.
Yeah, there's definitely that, and I've been accused of being like a chintzy DM before and things like that, but that's just the way it was. I mean, you had to be on your toes. If the world's a dangerous place, and that's certainly reflected in playing Dungeons and Dragons. And sometimes
the characters in the party were a dangerous place.
that too. But sometimes you might wander into the wrong place, and you have to beat feet to survive. Sometimes it's better to run away and live another day.
That was one of the options in the original initiative system, is you had to make the decision whether you were going to fight or flee. There was a couple other options too, but that was the first thing you decided. Are we going to stick around, or are we going to beat feet?
Yep, and certainly, it was a constant struggle. So I think some of the reason that my dad was so hard as a DM was to provide motivation for your characters to continue adventuring. So a lot of motivation came out of some of the pulp writing, including Conan. So why was Conan adventuring? Well, he wanted to go get some riches, right? And what happened to Conan when he, looted the temple? Well, he had a good time. He was drinking, and all of a sudden he'd wake up a couple of days later, and someone had stolen all his stuff.
Right.
And he was broke. He didn't have to go out adventuring.
Yeah.
So I think there was a reason why you have to, going up a level, you have to find somebody who's going to train you. You have to spend money to build your spell books and do the research to learn new spells. You have to, if you're going to. If you're fighting a dragon or whatever that has a breath weapon, and you fail, or an area effect spell like a fireball, and you fail your saving throw, you had to go through and roll a save for each one of your items.
Oh yeah.
Or it was lost.
Well, I lost a lot of items. Our DM decided we had too many items one time and hit us with a reverse gravity that dropped us like 80 feet, and then the spell wore off and dropped us another 80 feet. So two saving throws for everything. We lost 80% of our magic items.
Exactly.
I had forgotten about that little aspect.
Yeah.
With you being part of the Gygax family and there in the development of D&D, can you point to one aspect of D&D that you were responsible for that people might not know about but recognize in the game? Is there anything that you can put your finger on and say, that's my doing right there?
Sure. I think certainly probably everybody in my brothers and sisters can probably say that. For me, my first character was Otis. He was a ranger, and I played him up to 10th level before an ignoble demise in the Tomb of Horrors. And then I played a character called Melf, and that he was a fighter magic user. And so as I was adventuring through Castle Greyhawk, I think we've all had this if we played a wizard or a magic user. When you hit 5th level, you're pretty excited to get that fireball.
Mm-hmm.
And it was no different than anybody else. I was like, yes, fireball. All right, now I'm going to get. So I opened up, I think I was adventuring. I kicked open a door. I was solo adventuring. And sure enough, there was some ogres in a room or something like that. And I was like, how big is the room? And my dad's like, it's 30 by 30. I was like, awesome. I said I'd drop a fireball right in the middle of these guys. I'd won initiative.
With a 10-foot ceiling.
Exactly. And I learned about volume that day.
33 and a third 10 by 10 squares.
Yep.
Yeah, or 32, somewhere around there. Yeah.
Yep. So I got the backwash of damage, and I think I had to save for all my gear, and I was like, I felt that was very unjust, and I was, I was very upset, and I said, I want a fireball, but I want to break them up into small fireballs so that I don't get this problem. And he's like, well, okay, that's a neat idea. You want to throw like some smaller fireballs? Like, yeah. And he's like, all right. So I had to go and spend some time out of game, researching and spend money and describe the spell effects that I wanted to take place. And then we drew up a spell called Melf's Minute Meteors. And that became a spell that he included in the rules, as well as Melf's Acid Arrow. That was something at a lower level. Again, I did a lot of solo adventuring or with a small group, and as a fighter magic, fighter magic, you can do it all pretty much, right? That's healing. You can find potions for it. So I found that a lot of encounters that I had, there was sometimes like a spellcaster or in the back, and they would have some meat shields up front that would slow you down while they peppered you with spells. And so I said, okay, well, what would be really cool is if I open up a door or I get into an encounter and I have my longbow out, and I can shoot them with acid, on there that would do damage continuously over. It doesn't have to be a lot of damage, right? So as long as I can do a point of damage over time,
then you break up that spell. Yeah.
Exactly, right? And then I can kill the meat shields in a couple rounds, and then they're done for because they can't take me in hand-to-hand combat. So that idea, I said, well, you can't really get acid on an arrow to stay, but, I had to find a magical solution, and that became Melf's Acid Arrow. And then through, also, I would talk to my dad about things that I have ideas in my head, and so I made up the creature Vapor Rats, which no one remembers anymore.
I can't. No.
For Monster Manual 2, and then one that people do remember oftentimes is the Bullywug.
Yep.
That was another one that I created with my dad.
Nice. Now
so
we did a comedy bit featuring Melf, which maybe you'll find funny. I don't know. We'll have to send you a copy. We'll email you a copy of that file maybe. We do put little comedy bits in our normal podcast, so we had Melf in one of them.
Yeah. Hey, what is one thing about your father that you think people would be surprised to know?
That's
a tough one.
I get questions like this, from people like, "What was your dad like?" And I guess, well, he was like kind of I think he was a normal dad because he was my dad, right? So to me, it wasn't that much different. But I guess he was I guess maybe this is not a surprise. He was kind of a big kid, and he loved to, he had a silly sense of humor. He loved wordplay and bad puns. He used to love to tell long, extended jokes, like 10-minute long story jokes that ended in a horrible pun. So that he liked to do that sort of stuff. He truly had a love of old words. I mean, people can understand that from reading, his work. But he would. Someone, I think it was Eric Mona, posted up maybe within the last 6 months. Eric Mona works for Paizo. And he knew my dad pretty well. And he's obviously a big gamer. And he posted, he's like, I found where Gary got some of these words. I found it. And he found an old copy of a book called Pop Lollies and Belly Bones. And that had like words like Gundy Gut, Hottie Peak, and all that sort of stuff. So I can't remember what module it was, but my dad was naming a bunch of the NPCs as these silly old words that he picked up. And so he had a love of old and unused words that he liked to bring back into circulation. I think he had an unabridged dictionary from 18 something. It was huge, like 2 feet thick. And he found the word Dweomer Kraking in there and brought that back.
Nice. That's awesome.
So he loved to do that, and he thought that the English language was a beautiful language, and that the tendency, like the army writing style, is to be a active voice, use common words that people can understand, because you want quick common understanding. He was the antithesis of that. He wanted to get people to expand their vocabulary and said, hey, different words, they may have similar meanings, but they're different. And that's the beauty of language, is that you can use different words, and that helps you envision and understand something much more clearly and evoke a certain, emotion or whatever it is that you're looking for. So those are a couple of things.
Nice.
You have you brought up a little bit that kind of sparked my interest. You're a major, serving as a major in the U.S. Army, and I've often wondered, do you get that recognition when they see your name badge on your uniform saying, "Are you that Gygax?"
It's not a real common name, at least in America.
Yeah, and I'm sure that you don't get it at the current rank you are now, but maybe like when you were at a lesser rank.
Sure, and of course I joined in 1989, so that was a little bit closer to the heyday of D&D, although I would say now that with the popularity and rise of 5th edition, we are at or above those kind of levels right now.
Yeah, I would agree.
Certainly.
In an amazing time. So, yes, tons of people recognize my name when I was younger, and they would ask me that all the time, and they'd be like, no way. That used to make me extremely uncomfortable.
Really?
As a younger person. Yeah. Oh, gosh. Imagine if, I don't know, but if you have a father who maybe is known for something, and then people want to game with you, their assumption is, oh my God, my expectation level is to the roof. You must be the best gamer ever.
Yeah.
Well, the truth is, there's nothing in my DNA that makes me a good gamer.
Right.
Well, we don't know that for sure. There could be.
What is it, midichlorians or whatever?
Yeah.
Maybe I have, exactly. But other than that, other than the discovery of that, there's really nothing in your DNA that makes you a particularly better gamer than somebody else. I have had some experience, so I think I'm a decent gamer and all that sort of stuff. And of course, over the years, and as an older person, you kind of come into your own comfort zone in life. And now, of course, I don't have those reactions. If somebody recognizes and says, "Oh my gosh, that's so neat," oftentimes they want to, pass on their thanks for what my dad has done by creating the role-playing genre. And I'm now at a point in life where I can very comfortably accept what those thanks that they give to me, because they can no longer thank my father directly, and I feel very proud and honored to be able to help carry on that legacy and be the recipient of those feelings or those words, since my father isn't here to accept it himself. So totally different. But yeah, growing up, tons of people recognize that, and even more recently, I was at the shop at a little mini store, and a civilian was working there, and he saw my name tag, and he's like, "Hey, the guy who wrote D&D has that same last name." I was like, "Yeah, that's my dad." He's like, "No way." He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Can I get a selfie with you?" I was like, "Sure, okay, why not?" So, on very rare occasions, that does still happen today.
I was fortunate enough to meet your father at Gen Con in Indianapolis, and talked with him a short bit, and got to do exactly what you say people do to you. I got to say thank you. So that was kind of a highlight for me of that Gen Con. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, 2007? Or?
I think so, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the last Gen Con, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I met him earlier than that. He when he was working on Dangerous Journeys with GDW. I went to school in the town GDW is located, and he came down to the game shop, and I got him to sign some stuff. And I'm also very glad I had the chance to thank him for, because I don't want to make it seem melodramatic, but D&D was a formative part of my life. I mean, as an adolescent, it gave me sort of a solid base, a group of friends, a social activity that wasn't detrimental. I've told the story before. I'll tell it again because I really appreciate it. I went to the bookstore to get some D&D stuff, and my mom was with me, and she told the clerk, who was a young 20-something, he spent so much money on this. And the clerk looks at her and goes, he could be on the street doing drugs. and that is so true. Gamers tend to be good people, and D&D's responsible for that in large part.
I would agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a positive outlet, and it's I think there's a lot of common, when we're going through, young age, we're going from between child and adult. That's kind of an awkward stage, and there's some ways you can head off into the wrong direction. So this provides a positive path. And I mean, gosh, I've had a lot of people ask me about it, and I think about, what role playing is like, and the positive aspects of it. And it took me a while to, it took me some thinking, and over the years, I've kind of come up with, geez, role playing is really, it's really much more than just having fun. It teaches you a lot of life skills that I think are valuable for you as an adult, down the line.
Definitely.
The most simple, most obvious things are like you probably expand your reading.
Oh, vocabulary.
Expand your vocabulary. Okay,
Yes.
That's obvious. Some of the simple math and that sort of thing is good for your younger players. But the things that folks don't realize that you're learning while you're having fun. And just imagine it, especially as a dungeon master, you have to understand what motivates other people. You have to develop hooks for them. And each person is different at your table, and you have to be able to come up with a reason to motivate them to do things. Whenever you plan an adventure, so you're getting experience in building and structuring, a storyline. Of course, as we know, I'm sure we've all been dungeon masters before, the party never does what you expect they're going to do, right? So you have to be able to go off the cuff, be an extemporaneous, speaker, and persuade them and help, or go with the direction that they're going, and then make things up and make it seem seamless and smooth. So you're being innovative, you're adapting, you're improvising. These are all great skills. As a player and a DM, you have to maybe sell some ideas to convince other folks of your point of view. So you're doing public speaking, persuasive speaking. You're selling you're arguing a point.
I also think you're navigating complex social situations in a safe environment. For younger people, that's a big deal. Those skills you learn at the table can serve you elsewhere.
And why does that make sense? Like, well, so what? You're playing a character. What, you're telling me that you know how to act like a dwarf in a medieval fantasy bar? No. I would argue completely what you're saying. When we recount our tales of an adventure, what do we say? We don't say, do you remember when we were playing these characters and did this? We say, no. As gamers, we say, remember that time when we went down into the Underdark and we killed Lost or whatever it is, right?
Right.
That your mind believes that you are doing those things, right? So you get that benefit, like you're talking about. You get that experience in a relatively consequence-free environment, and you can learn to build confidence in yourself. Maybe you're really awkward and just feel so bashful or shy, but as your barbarian or whatever it is, you can get out there and do things and be upfront and take charge and be brave, and you can learn, oh, this works, this doesn't, I can do these things, and you begin to believe in yourself. You learn and you sharpen your skills. So yeah, I think there's a lot of benefits that we don't even realize or don't think about because we're just having so much fun. But yeah, D&D is a powerful tool, and I think that's why it's one of the reasons why it's so popular is you're having fun and you're learning and you're escaping from what can sometimes be a world with a lot of challenges or hardships for a little while, and making great friends.
And now, Luke, I know, yeah, absolutely, making good friends. Those are some of the friends that I'm still friends with 30 years after playing in high school. Yeah. And oddly enough, we still reminisce about that game or those sessions every once in a while. So
kind of like old soldiers do about when they were together in battle or something, right?
Well, that's what we need. VFWs for gamers.
Yeah, my game group is really bad about that.
Yeah.
Well, why is that? It's because your brain kind of believes that you are doing all these dangerous and high-risk activities with these people, right? Yeah. So this kind of mix of reality or not, so you kind of form that like a little bit like a band of brothers.
Right.
Obviously, maybe not quite as powerful, but because you're not really in that situation, but you're pretty immersive. And so I think that helps really strengthen those bonds, and that's one of the factors why we're so close with our gaming group.
I know that you are on a limited time frame. We want to make sure that we get a chance for you to say anything cool coming up at GaryCon that you want to talk about before we have to end our conversation.
Well, I would just say, hey, if you don't know about GaryCon, you haven't come to GaryCon, you want to find out more, we do have a website, garycon.com. We're on Facebook. Just search for GaryCon Gaming Convention. We have an Instagram and a Twitter as well, so you can review and see what we got going on. But this year is going to be amazing. I mean, we've got over 1,600 events, so many great guests from folks like Dave Wesley, the guy who created Bronstein, which is the very first, the spark from which role-playing came, to guys who, obviously played and were involved in D&D with my father. There's folks from, Minnesota contingent. There'll be people running Blackmore, who were part of Dave Arneson's gaming group. Dave McGarry is there with Dungeon, all the way to folks like Jason Bowman with the Pathfinder 2nd Edition. He'll be there playing that. Mike Merles and a large contingent from Wizards of the Coast will be there at GaryCon again, running hundreds, literally hundreds of Adventurers League events. So you can play a historical game like Bronstein with Dave Wesley, or you can play the most current 5th edition scenarios with guys like Mike Merles or Greg Marks or Chris Lindsay at GaryCon. So there's something for everybody. So I am just very proud, honored, and humbled to be able to be the guy who organizes GaryCon. It's a ton of work, but man, it is all worth it when I'm there seeing thousands of people have so much fun. It really makes it worth it.
Yes, as an attendee, all of us as attendees, I think we would like to say thank you for putting it on. It's a great tribute to your father, and also a great tribute to just the gaming community in general. I mean, it's a great thing to have.
Thank you very much.
Oh no, you're very welcome. And besides GaryCon, like you kind of said it, I'm a officer in the military, so I'm an operations officer for a brigade. So that keeps me pretty busy. I'm a father to 3 young girls.
That'll keep you busy.
They actually like to see their dad sometimes as well. I run GaryCon along with some really dedicated and amazing staff members. So huge shout out to all of those guys. I could not do that without you, so I'd never want to forget about that. I get a lot of help to make GaryCon happen. It's about the community, as we said earlier. But other than that, things that are coming up, I have my fingers crossed for some opportunities that will hopefully develop in 2019 and come out in 2020. Stuff that I can't talk about, but hopefully I'll be having some creative content, out there a little bit more accessible for folks. And as I prepare to retire from the military in 2020, and hopefully can put a little bit more attention to creating adventure content and doing that a little bit more so, as opposed to simply being a convention organizer and basically just due to time that I can't do more. I have lots and lots of ideas and wonderful things I want to do. It's really just a fight with time, and I think many of us feel that. I'm sure you guys are balancing.
Yeah, we're all headed to work immediately after this.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So you get it. But yeah, I think the future is bright, and there's going to be many new things. One thing I can say, I almost forgot, and it's going to be coming up on July 28th. Will be Founders and Legends Day. I did that last year, right before my father's 80th birthday. I held a streaming event called Founders and Legends Day, where I just talked about the history of Dungeons and Dragons, exactly what it was like, growing up in my father's house. I had some folks on to talk about Art and Arcana, which wasn't out yet. And we played, the main focus, we played 3 games. We played a 1st edition game with Stefan Bacorny from Dwarven Forge. And if you don't know Stefan, you should look him up. He's a great guy. Yeah. And then we played a 2nd game with Satine Phoenix, 5th edition. She ran some Eberron for us, Maze Arcana. And then the final game was 5th edition with Mike Merles as the DM. And I broke out Melf. I converted to 5th edition. I played Melf. And my friend Joe Manganello came, and he brought Archon out of retirement. And we played 18th level, epic level adventure. And there was TJ Storm and, Ashley Miller who writes for Voltron. There was just a ton of really cool folks who were at that table and just amazing. And it was great. And it was probably the best adventure I've had in a decade.
Nice.
Mike Merles is a master behind the screen. If you get a chance to play with Mike Merles, do it.
Played with him briefly at Gamehole Con.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mike is great. And so that was a lot of fun. And I plan on doing that again. It's a stream. We stream on, hopefully we'll be on D&D Twitch again and do that. And then we're on YouTube now. So if you want to see what it was like I think it was an amazing adventure. You can use
we'll throw a link up on our podcast notes. Yeah,
especially that third game, man. That was just awesome. So, but yeah, that's what I got coming up in the near term.
All right,
nice.
Funny story. Funny aside. I had no idea what I was doing when I put together a stream. I just said, a lot of people do the streaming thing. I'll just stream them many nights. That looks kind of fun. Let's do that. And I was like, yeah, I think I want to do 12 hours of streaming, really close to my dad's 80th birthday in honor of him. 12 hours of streaming. Holy smokes.
Yeah.
I put that together. The Wizards guy said, yeah, that sounds cool. You should do that. We'll send, Mike will go down, and, Mike said, yeah, I'll come down and help out. I thought, okay, great. So I was lucky enough that the folks at Critical Role let me use their studio. They're great guys too.
Yeah.
And so I got to use their studio, but of course, the crew, you have to pay a crew to do that sort of stuff. And 12 hours of training means about a 14-hour day. So that's like double time.
Yeah.
And then, insurance for a production is incredibly expensive, even in a completely safe environment where you're rolling dice. It was huge. So all those costs and everything, I put it together inside of 3 weeks. And for about 10 of those days, I was in Indiana, the state of Indiana, Camp Atterbury, doing some sort of warfighter exercise where I didn't have access to the internet or a phone for 13 hours a day because it was a 6-year exercise. So it's like midnight, and I'm sitting in a rental car working off of my laptop, powered by my cell phone, trying to coordinate this thing and make it all happen. And
that's dedication.
We did it. Yeah, I don't think you can watch it and tell me if you think that was put together in 2 weeks. Put together. I think it was about an 18-hour day for me.
Wow.
Because I think I was on screen for like 10 and a half hours out of 12. It was
so
ridiculous.
This year will be easy. I mean, compared to last year, you got to meet this year.
This year will probably be a little shorter. I think I'm going to go for 8 hours of streaming in 2 games and just be a little bit wiser. So yeah, but I made it happen. And again, I had some help, some really great folks. And once again, I said gamers are good people, and that applies to the your small guy who's just knocking out material on the side to your folks like the franchise creative director Mike Morrells at Wizards of the Coast, also awesome guy and a gamer. So once again, our community is great, and it's really cool to be part of it.
Well, we want to thank you very much for taking time out of your very early morning, getting on the phone with us and talking all kinds of things about GaryCon, D&D, and Grown Up Gygax. So for the Grognards, I'm Dean Gygax saying thanks a lot, Luke.
I'm Eric Hawley, also thanking you.
And I'm Greg Ziegler. Thank you very much.